Everybody say hi.
Hi.
Alright. My speech is on the song American Pie. The song American Pie has much more meaning than people think it does. This great American classic influenced rock and roll in the 70s and tells an important story of the previous decade in the process. It's written by Don McLean, partially in New York and partially in Pennsylvania. The song begins with the death of Buddy Holly and ends at the concert at Altamont Motor Speedway. The time frame spans 10 years across 1960 to 1970. American Pie had its opening debut when Don McLean opened for Laura Nyro at the Temple University in March 1971. By 1972, the song had hit number 1 for 4 weeks in the United States, while simultaneously hitting number 2 in the UK. Although the song was first heard in March of 1971, the United Artists, the publishing company that McLean worked with, did not release a single until November. The company split the song into 2 parts so to fit the entire song on a cassette. But when DJs played it over the radio, they played the song in its entirety, understanding that in order to get the entire meaning of the song, you had to play it all together. Some believe the reason the song became such a big hit was because no one really knew what the song was about. And when confronted with questions regarding the song, McLean would not respond other than to say that the messages were left for the society to decipher on their own. The famous chorus, "Bye Bye Miss American Pie, drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry, and good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye, singing This Will Be the Day That I Die," can be very controversial in dissection on its own. The first line is said to have been mentioned because Don was dating a Miss America candidate and broke up with her around the same time as Holly's death. Mentioning a Chevy in his song was symbolic, and at the time a Chevy was a symbol of male independence. Also at the same time, gas was in a shortage and people had to ration gas at levees, and obviously the one Don mentions had most likely rationed out. This Will Be the Day That I Die was a key piece in the song, as it was from one of Holly's hits, That'll Be the Day. The first tip that this song is more than a rock and roll song is when he sings he is delivering papers in February, and there is bad news on the doorstep. The music is rock and roll represented by Buddy Holly. He left a young, widowed bride with a child who miscarried shortly thereafter. Holly died in a tragic airplane crash on February 3rd, 1959. The beginning of the song, A Long, Long Time Ago, along with the chorus, is about a more innocent age, which certainly 1959 was, compared to 1971 when the song was released. The song goes on to intertwine the Bible and rock and roll. It talks about dancing slow and pickup trucks. This is about an era. This is about the problem people had with rock and roll, and it is a time when boys couldn't dance, and McLean talked about not being able to trust a girl. This is all about teenage angst at the time. 10 years we've been on our own refers to the time covered in the song since Holly's death in 1959. It took us through and incorporated the time period that involved Bob Dylan. Dylan is referred to as the jester who sang for the king and queen. Dylan sang for the king and queen of Great Britain and did so looking like James Dean. There's a change, and the king wearing the thorny crown has it stolen by the jester. This is referring to the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley. There's a change of music from the initial rock and roll of Elvis Presley to the questioning times of Bob Dylan, who was the voice of the people. John Lennon was a mini-socialist, hence the line, Lennon read a book on Marx, while the quartet, the Beatles, practiced in the park. I don't want to give you every point for the song, although I've given you a link to use as a reference. As you read through the lyrics, consider the 1960s as a generation lost in space. This is a result of drug use. The marching band that would not yield is considered to be the Beatles, who would not give up the top spot of music. And Satan laughing with delight with the angels, Hell's Angels, is referred to as from a concert of Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones that was held with the Angels as the bodyguards, where several people were killed. The girl who sang the blues is thought to be Janis Joplin, And the three I admire most, perhaps John Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, and Martin Luther King, although there are many other considerations. Even with this look at allegory, why does American Pie remain such a mysterious and wonderful song? Perhaps it's because of the start with the death of Buddy Holly. An age of innocence went quickly into an age of sin and degradation by many people's standards.